All right, so I'm going to be going over elements of poster design. My name's Aguilar. I am the in-house graphic designer for Active Replica. And I'm also still a university student at the IDEA program at Capilano in Vancouver, BC. So I'm just going to be briefly presenting this little Canva presentation I have set up. So there are quite a few elements of poster design. Don't be too intimidated by it though. There's a lot of things that do overlap. But one of the most important things that could really make or break a design, no matter how nice it is typography. Because you want the typography to work with the essence of the message that you're trying to achieve. So just think like, oh, you're going for a wedding. What's like the first sort of like font or typeface that comes to mind? You think script, not like maybe like a US Navy bold kind of like typeface. You want everything to integrate seamlessly, because at the end of the day, like typography is also a way to communicate sort of like, I guess, a brand or feel. So next thing is hierarchy. What is the first thing you read here? What was the first thing you read here, Brendan?
As I was reading it, it was telling me what I was reading. It was like, you will read this first, and then you will read this next line. I was like, yep, okay.
Did you hit this one as well? You'll probably read this before the paragraph.
Mm-hmm. And then I went back up to the top. At some point, you may come back to read this line, or maybe not.
And then, of course, you will always go back here. So yeah, hierarchy is a funny thing, because normally, like traditionally, you would imagine like headers, of course, at the top, maybe like tagline, subtitle underneath, and then body text. But when you think about hierarchy, it's actually about like color and like size and proportion. So if you get the hang of this, you'll be able to create like a really dynamic sort of design where the viewer's eye will just go anywhere. Because normally, as I said, like traditionally, header up here, you see my cursor, right? Header up here, and then like body text down here. But what Brendan was doing, he essentially went across the entire layout of the page, which is just like knocking it out of the park if you're able to do that in design. So if you're able to make something where a viewer won't just funnel in on one part, but just like see the scope of everything, that means you're making a very interactive poster design, and you're also utilizing all the space that you can while just making it very legible and visually appealing. And again, this is just another example of that as well. And here's hierarchy too, with the use of color. So of course, blue and white, they do contrast, but not as much as blue and red. It just makes everything pop. Like your eye would immediately go over here, anything that was red, and then your eyes would then follow. So like through the space here, maybe then see the details and everything else. The next important thing, other than like typography and hierarchy, that I think will just like set the foundation for everyone who's trying to make a poster for the first time, is the rule of thirds. So you may have heard of it, may have not, but rule of thirds is essentially making a 3x3 grid over whatever sort of like proportion of like meter you're working on. And ideally you would like to hit these intersections here. You see this all the time in cinematography, photography, and even, of course, poster design. So diagrams use rule of thirds, of course. You can see that, again, this was around like the 40%-ish. Like you are most likely to look here. And this also follows, I guess, like in the UI UX like web industry. There's this sort of kind of like rule of thirds they have where it's a Z pattern as well, and you can see that it follows through too. And here's just some more examples of grid and alignment. You see 1917. If I were to cut it into threes, you could see that the silhouette already hits that. Lady Bird, same part as well.
It's her face, yeah.
It's her face, and most notably her eye too.
Yeah.
And on Makeshift, this is a more like prominent version of the grid. You can see the cutoff is here, but along this line here too, you can see that on my cursor, the T and this line here for separation is also hitting. So just like little details like that just make everything come together and just like helps make a focal point. Maybe like 1917 is a bit more prominent, but it's just like a nice little touch, so to say. And next thing is balance. So there's a bunch of different balance. You could have everything completely symmetrical, which is nice, but do be careful because it could make the image a bit more static. Normally, if you go for asymmetry, it could leave a bit more breathing room and just like a little hint of surprise. And a good example is Saul Bass's work for his poster of Rocky, where it is asymmetrical, but because of his use of text on the top here, it's actually balancing out with the silhouette and staircase of the man who's running. So it just really goes to show that like if you can integrate all of these together, you can just like come up with like anything, no matter what. Next thing is color. Color could be used to just like create similarities or connections between things. So of course, like Vogue, bringing the cyan over, having it be like an upside down V, connecting it with the model. And also color or the lack of color. Anything monochromatic as well that has the opportunity to like playing with value, it can make it pop as well. And different tones of color too can convey different moods. So this Disney poster of The Incredibles, it just creates a sort of retro feel. So like color and typography, be very careful with, because sometimes it could convey a different message than intended. And playing off of that, contrast with color and patterns. I'm not too sure how well you see this, but you can see how condensed the pattern is anywhere but her face. It begins to lighten up, and it helps create a central focal point on this. And then of course for Green Day, American Idiot, you can already see the contrast of course, the most prominent color, red, but again, creating an association with the use of red. My most favorite thing is negative space. So negative space is kind of just playing around with the space around objects, and that just causes like, it's just a cause for like an amazing opportunity where you could play around with things. So I can already imagine like all the spaces that you guys will be making. You could have like, I think I saw, Brendan, on your Instagram page, you had like an avatar and then NPC cut out from like a cave entrance. Like that's already a good example. So you've already done that. So I applaud.
Cool.
And then the next thing is white space, which I would guess is probably a go-to for a lot of people if you're getting just like assets and trying to put something together. So white space is just like being able to give the viewer like a break between information, or it's to convey an atmosphere. Say with this festival poster, it's meant to feel full, so that's why the text is so like squished in amongst like this group of people having a fun time. So playing again with like, this could also be considered with like composition and hierarchy in a sense.
Cool.
And then proportion. if you find yourself getting too lost and say maybe like following the rule of thirds, it could become too flat or static. But if you play with proportion, it could make the design more abstract and just like a little bit more interesting and visually appealing to look at. Like if I had, say, the black swan, like really small on the corner, you would mainly just be looking at her eyes.
Right.
But they've cleverly enough placed the eyes in between the letters. And say for Esquire, following again the rule of thirds and alignment, you can see that the S on Esquire pulls down here, and it can also be reinforced by the Q as well.
Wow.
Next thing up is pattern, or the break of pattern, causing repetition could just like make, again, something easy for the eye to follow through. Or if you break that pattern, it's also a good window to add, say, like some text, maybe a figure sticking out, popping out. Like these could be dates on a show poster, like this, since like virtual reality, this could be like a grid, maybe all pixels, maybe it could like break, and then this empty space here, just like, hey, show is XYZ date,
right,
and whatnot.
Cool.
Next thing is texture. Again, texture will just bring like another like fun element to your design. It isn't completely necessary, but sometimes it just gives it a little like extra punch. So like if, say for this could easily be associated maybe with like a CD, for example, because of the repetition of circles. And then last thing is line or leading lines. This is a bit hard to read, but because of how they've used the film, you're able to follow through with the text. And even for Tron, you could read Tron first, and then you'll be brought up to the arcade machine, or vice versa. So again, since you're working with VR, you have a lot of opportunities to use these anytime. But again, I think the easiest foundation you need to have is like rule of thirds, typography, and color in my book. The rest, just like other good things to keep in mind of.
Cool.
That's my little presentation on elements of design.
Amazing. Very cool.
You.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
I think too, as just kind of a diving in experiment to kind of like set everybody up for like, so now what do I do? I am going to hopefully give you this URL in the chat. And this is just to my scene for my little snippet or show. So if we both go there and log in, and if you're able to still share your screen,
Yes.
we can actually like go in. I can record that and follow that.
Let's see.
Perfect.
Yes.
So here's the little character. And in this scene, they are going to grab this lantern. And they make the lantern, they like stretch the lantern and make it really big. And then we're all inside the lantern, and basically shadow puppets inside the lantern tell the story that he is singing about.
Oh, that's amazing.
So that's basically, I want the idea that we're in this dark kind of space, we're trapped, and going inside the lantern, we're able to use that like a shadow puppet while he's singing to be able to tell the story of how we got here. And then the lantern will shrink back down now that we know how we got there, and it'll be about the audience helping them get up the stairs to get out of their situation.
Okay. I dig that. The moment you said like stretch, I already like thought in my head like for say like the poster, it could be the lamp like stretched, like say like this, and you could see like very faintly like a low opacity head of the character behind, the lantern, and then there could be little shadow puppets just like in between, if that makes any sense.
It might, yeah. Should we? Oops, I just threw a lantern across the room.
Oh, yep. Yes, you did.
If I take this lantern and put it, oh, because it has gravity on it. That's why, Brendan. Duh.
Curses.
But I was wondering if I held this lantern like up to my face. Sorry, just trying to use the mouse wheel very badly.
It's easier with like the actual
with
like
the
VR
controllers.
gear.
Yeah, but do you imagine kind of the negative space? I'm holding this up in front of my face. It's stretching, and then it's this character's face poking through.
Could be like poking through, or just like the eyes could be like just barely looking
like
over.
This?
Yeah, something like that. Oh, so sorry.
No, it's fine. It has an opacity built in when you get too close to an avatar, so you can not get trapped inside of people.
Yeah, you can phase through people. But yeah, like oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask, and then would we use the like shadow puppet style to be the name of the piece or something like that for the text?
You could, yes. You could have like a sort of like shadow-esque effect of the text, just like being like a little subtle nod of like, of course, the shadow puppets will be like a key part of this story that the character is telling. Like if you could integrate that, like that would be great. And already, because like since this is just like a solid color, this is like screaming to like, hey, text can go here. This is like really nice use of like negative space, for example.
Cool.
But yeah, I'm already digging this, like the lighting, like the ambience of it all.
I just dropped it.
Yeah.
Cool. And then as far as kind of like then combining the elements, so like we kind of have an idea of would it be offset, or would it just be giant at the bottom, the name of the show, or kind of what do you see being the kind of the thirds you were calling it, and then the line of where things go?
Well, I'm thinking a bit more so of like hierarchy, because like if the character is looking down, that's already causing this like, I guess, imaginary line of like, hey, look down here into the lantern. So I think like if the text could just be a little bit bold, so it could pop a bit more, since I'm imagining the background is already going to be like a little bit dark already. If you could just cause more contrast within like the lantern and light, I think that would already be enough, because you're playing with hierarchy. Like you don't always have to integrate like rule of thirds. It's a nice thing to have, but I've also noticed that sometimes when people are introduced to it, they're very like focused, like, oh yeah, if I follow this here, it would work, right? But sometimes that's not always the case with the assets that you're working with. So sometimes it's good to like pick and choose from different elements and see if they work, because sometimes they may not always. That's the tricky thing with design.
Gotcha. So if you hit G, you can kind of like freely fly. You show me kind of a general framing or
of you.
Yeah, I kind of tried to line myself up behind this lantern just to try to.
Oh yeah, yes.
Very badly. Obviously, there's a branch in the way.
Yeah. I'm just going to imagine that I do see your eyes here, and then maybe there's like a hand holding this.
Oh, it's like coming out towards us.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Maybe like that too. But yeah, it causes this cool like depth and perspective, which is not, I would say, like in today's time with graphic design, sometimes it looks very flat. But like since you're working with 3D, you can like play around with it a lot. So might as well like use that, right? But I was thinking like there could be the show name here, and then you can have additional like details in the bottom. Like not as big as the show title, of course, because you want that to be like the main impact. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, sweet. I'm being careful not to use like too geeky terminology to like confuse people. And then I probably already am.
But it's great because we should be using the right language and we should learn. What do you think it should just be like a screen grab of this, or do you think it should then be filtered in any way or color pushed anyway so that like the yellow really pops and then the blacks really pop and the...
That is a good question. If possible, yes, it's always good to do some like processing like after. I can already imagine like if you want to push like that ambient feeling of like the light even more, like once we get that like screen grab of it, you could make like I don't know if I'm saying it right, but like a vignette.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Oh,
you can make
but a
like,
vignette of yellow instead of black.
I was thinking like vignette of like black across like the entire like frame, just so like it can help draw your eye into the lantern more, and it could even like make the character look a bit more like ominous or like behind the scenes, because he's the one kind of like, I guess, orchestrating everything in a sense, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Just like if you have the chance to like push more contrast without like making your eyes like scream, then yes.
Cool. And when it comes to like a byline or show dates, like kind of less important or secondary information, you know, you kind of imagined the title of it being on the yellow. Would that also go on parts of the lantern, or would it just kind of go over in the side of the poster? Or
depending on like the composition. So say like if you see this is gonna be hard because I can't like, draw a doodle on my screen. No, wait, can I? I think I can. I can annotate, can't I?
You can draw like a 3D pin.
3D pin.
So if you do place at the bottom UI.
Oh, I need to move the zoom UI because it's blocking it. Okay, place.
And the pen.
Okay, sweet. So,
it's okay. It won't draw on an avatar, but it did draw on the wall behind me.
Okay. So imagine like if the framing were just like this with the lantern, like really big, it would be fine to like say the header is like up here, maybe like even bigger. I'm not sure how long the date is, but maybe additional information could just be written in like columns like that.
Cool.
Or if you want to have this entire like lantern be just the title, if you I can just move back and make additional space. Amazing. 3D. You could have like extra text just at the bottom, say like I think like cinema-esque, I guess. But it is a theater show, so yeah, that would work as well. But it just depends on like your framing and your cropping. But yes, either way works.
Great.
Just depends like how big of an impact you want on like the show or like the vignette effect, so to say again.
Right.
But that could help really draw up to here, and the additional information. Wait, how do I remove those?
You hover over them and hold spacebar, and you basically have to delete them like they're individual assets, I think. You can also just leave them. They'll they'll go away when we leave.
When I go away. Okay. Yeah. All right. Oh, how do I exit it? Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Just click on the pen again. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
Like, how do I stop drawing?
Yeah, stop me.
Cool. Any closing thoughts? This has been incredible. I feel like I just got like a masterclass.
Oh, thank you. A very condensed masterclass. But yeah, Jake, don't be. I guess like the best advice I can give for like making your own show poster and whatnot. Like be open to all sorts of like different formatting and whatnot. Like don't be married to one like thought or idea. Like, there's so much room for like possibility. Like even if you think it's not gonna work out, like try it. There might be one element or aspect that does work, maybe like the 5%, but you can still carry that over and bring it to like the finished piece and whatnot. Like don't be afraid. I mentioned like all these rules and whatnot, but like mess around with it, get a feel for it first, and it'll eventually come to you. Is all I
Cool.
can say.
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking us through this. And if anybody has any questions, please don't DM people, because when you have a question, it helps feed the community because we all want to know. So please put it in the OB4 we're on thread so that everybody can see the question and see the answer, and we can kind of start building our posters together for the show.